Hi, Percy fam! Again, it's Chai.
And rap.
Yes, and we welcome you to another episode of Church Alive. And this episode, actually, Rap, I wanted to ask you a question.
Sige, go.
Did you happen to notice how Christianity is continuously growing in some parts of the world?
Well, it's a good thought. So yes, I have been noticing that. But I have been noticing also like declines in some areas naman.
Yeah, I think in the Philippines, I mean, that's where we live, of course. So it's more prominent to see a decline, even just around our peers as well, like the participation in Christianity in general.
Actually, ba't mo natanong, Shai?
Kasi that is the prime focus of this month's episode.
So for this episode, we want to explore one of the growing populations of Christianity, specifically Catholicism here in the world, and that is in Africa.
Yes, actually excited na ako kasi first time natin to na we get to hear actually first-hand experiences in Africa. I mean, it's a wonderful country. We want to go there, FRC fam. But today, what we want to be focusing on are expressions of the Christian faith in Africa.
Yes.
Yes.
So join us in this episode entitled
Faith Unveiled, the Heartbeat of African Christianity.
So let's welcome our guests for today, Chai.
Yes, first off, we have a marketing consultant, and let's all welcome Allan Mirasol.
Hello, FRC fam. Nice to be here.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And of course, we have none other than the president of the Holy Cross Family Ministries himself. So he is a priest who's had a very rich background in marketing and PR. So let's welcome Fr Fred Jenga of the Holy Cross Congregation.
Thank you, fam. We appreciate.
Welcome, Father.
Thank you.
So for those who don't know FRC fam, the Holy Cross Family Ministries is actually the international organization that we are
The
under
parent
the parent organization of Family Rosary Crusade. So it's a blessing to have you here,
Yes, Father. Despite your very busy schedule.
For sure.
I love coming to the Philippines.
Is there anything in particular that you like coming back to here in the Philippines besides FRC?
The Filipinos love a good party. So every time I come here, I have a great time.
Yes. In fact, we just came from a lunch party
Yes,
just
actually.
before the shoot.
Busog na busog.
Busog na busog. Happy birthday, Father Rock. At least this is a belated already when this episode airs. But let's get to the heartbeat of what we hope to unveil for today.
Yes, FRC fam. Actually, we did a little bit of research and we found out that in Africa, ang population nila is 1.4 billion.
Okay.
Okay? Imagine that. And
I can't imagine 1 billion
dami
people.
nila.
It's a lot of people.
Yes, and apparently 273 million of them are Catholics.
How many percent is that, Chai? Quick maths.
Tapos meron ganun. 19%.
Wow! Galing. Oh. So that's for 2024.
Yes, that's the that's the latest update on the statistics of
And tama ba, I heard like that statistic is actually the fastest growing Catholic. Basically, it shows that it's the fastest growing Catholic region right now.
Yes, which is very interesting. Actually, this is the first time I'm encountering that information. So maybe we can shed light on that as Father and maybe Allan. What do you think is the backing of these statistics, and maybe based on your experience there as well, Father?
Well, yeah, the statistics don't lie because they are all collected from the church and the national censuses. People identify themselves as Catholics. If you visit Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa, like Kenya and Tanzania and the Congo and Uganda, you'll find that the church is growing. We are at that point where the churches are full,
Wow.
the seminaries are full, the convents are as well full, and it's a young, vibrant, energetic, joyful church at this point.
Wow, that's very good to hear.
Yes.
Father.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Africa, and so it's
We would love
You
to.
need to come.
I would love to, and to see churches that are full and congregations that
And
are
seminaries, right?
vocations
Yes.
that are really rolling out.
Yes, the
or
nuns
like
are
living
there.
up to like the mission that we hope to see.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm interested to know, Father, and I'm sure FRC fam would be as well. How old is the church in Africa? And how did it start? Like, was there any nation that brought it there? Was it like, I don't know, like, maybe you can shed light on that.
Yes, yeah. You know, the church in Africa is old. Because if you talk about the geographical place itself, then the whole of North Africa has had Christianity for a long time. You know, the St. Augustine lived in Northern Africa. There are a lot of saints that even lived in all of that. That's like the north of it. But in the south of it, Jesus actually lived in Africa too. You remember when he was a kid and the parents had to flee from the Holy Land to go to Egypt because Herod wanted to kill the baby. They ran down to Egypt. So, and I tell people every time that I meet that the River Nile, my hometown of Jinja is where the Nile River starts its long journey to Egypt. So if you go to Egypt and you just follow the Nile deep down into Africa, it starts off from my hometown of Jinja. That's what, so Jesus drank water from my hometown.
Wow! What a flex!
Only a few people can say that.
And the Queen of Sheba in the Old Testament, the one who went to see Solomon, so many years before Jesus was born, came from Africa, came from Ethiopia. And if you read the book of the Acts of the Apostles, there is a story told about an Ethiopian eunuch who traveled to go to the Holy Land, to go and pray in the temple in Jerusalem. And on his way out, he was baptized by Philip. So we have biblical, historical connections to the faith. It's only just the seasons of it. So you have the time of the Solomons, there is the time of the Ethiopians, the Church of the Acts of the Apostles. We have the Church of the faith of St. Augustine and so many others also. Now, deep down into the interior of Africa, like where I come from, faith had to be brought at a different time. So missionaries came from Europe.
Oh, okay.
They came from France. They came from Germany. They came from Ireland to come and spread the faith in the interior of Africa. So they did this at different times. In my home country of Uganda, Catholicism arrived in 1879. That's when the first missionaries showed up. They didn't know any word in the language. They didn't know the culture of the people. And then they had to start planting the faith. And in just a span of maybe 20 years, the faith had grown so much that there was a persecution of the church in that country, of the faith, and a lot of Christians were killed, and but the people stayed Christian. From that time on, the church has been growing and growing. So I have saints in my country. We have the 22 Uganda martyrs that are on the church calendar. The 3rd of August is St. Charles Suluanga and his companions. Those are Ugandans who were killed by a king. Either choose the faith or we kill you. They said, we are going to stay with the faith. They cut them, they put them on a big pyre, and we have the Uganda Martyrs Shrine in Namgongo, where before COVID, 3 million Catholics converged there. Do you know what it means, 3 million people converging in one place to celebrate faith?
What came to my mind was actually it's quite the opposite experience for us in the Philippines. Like the Philippines before, historically, has been living their own culture, different tribes. And then conquerors came, and the Spaniards basically, and that's what brought Christianity to us. And ever since, like, we've been a generally Christian nation.
I was actually thinking of the same thing. And what was interesting about that I thought of is that it's been here for like a longer period of time compared.
Yes. In my country, maybe we are 150 years, I guess.
Yeah.
Since when Catholicism was established, so Christianity was established.
Yes.
Yeah, and here,
Before that, it was really our cultures and our kingdoms and
Yeah.
all of that.
and here in the Philippines, like 500
Half a
years.
century.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because here in the Philippines, we see a decline.
Di lang
Right.
century, half a millennia? Millennium? Yeah.
Kasi century one. Oo. Yes. Compute pa ako sa brain.
Why do we have so much math for this
Oo nga.
episode?
But that is interesting, right? Na parang
Yeah,
with them,
actually, the
they're
numbers really are
they
interesting.
maintain to be very proud. But I feel
Numbers
like,
don't lie. So
Yes.
it is good to have
yeah.
stats.
Yes, Father. Yes, so very interesting. No? If it's contrasting two of these origins, parang Christianity roots, although it wasn't formalized then, was already part of the African culture prior to these missionaries coming along.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
compared to the Philippines, kasi it was brought to us.
Yeah,
No?
that was our
It's-
first encounter of Jesus,
Yeah.
like the Spaniards coming here.
Yes, so ngayon, eto na yung exciting kasi malalaman natin on-the-ground experience.
Wow.
So let's get to Alan. Ang isang Pinoy na nakapunta sa Africa,
Africa.
which is sana naman, di ba? Sana all. But Alan, maybe you can give us some context why you actually went to Africa and then what was the picture there,
Yeah.
experience.
Sure, Chai. You know what? It all started here, dito sa Pilipinas. Because, like you said, being a marketing consultant, I started helping the Philippines with the communication strategies and the branding. So, the project started, I remember, last 2021. And then eventually, since it all worked out, I was blessed to have been contacted by the international office to perform the same tasks, essentially, from here to East Africa. Now, I was there for twice. The first time was in 2023. I was in Jinja, the birthplace of
Yeah.
Father
Wow.
Jenga
The
himself.
Nile River.
And true enough, it was very interesting because when I was there last June 2023 in Jinja, we were literally at the Holy Cross Congregation office at the mouth of Lake Victoria, where the River Nile really comes from.
Yes.
So literally every morning I would see the River Nile.
What
So
a view.
it was
Yes.
such a view. Now, when I came back there later on, kasi I had to teach the team to do some research. So I guess hearing a lot of your insights kanina, I can actually back it up with some of the findings
Oh,
from
wow.
that research. No, some were surprising.
Numbers, more numbers.
Actually, we have a blackboard.
The experience I've had in all three countries were so diverse. I would say, starting off with Uganda, of course, in the capital of Kampala, it is urbanized, but the feeling for me, looking at it, it's like Manila back in the late 80s. So there's a little bit of difference, but it's buzzing with energy. There's a lot of things going on. You see a lot of markets, you see a lot of people going to and from. And one of the impressions that I've had actually from an outsider's perspective, the outside of the airport felt like Europe. It was vast, it was open, it was beautiful. And then when you get to the cities, people are quite packed, at least in Kampala.
Yes, yes.
That was my observation.
Yes.
And the energy, you would just feel that, people are just so busy. It's just like para ka na sa Divisoria
Oh,
or Quiapo. I would see a lot of that. Now, after that, we went to a place called Fort Portal. It's what you call like Baguio here. It's to the western end of Uganda. Actually, nasa border na halos ng Congo.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
it was a beautiful trip because you would see literally national forests, baboons just going around on the
Yes,
street,
yes.
and makikita mo rin a lot of beautiful tea plantations.
Yes.
And then when you get to Portal, it's semi-urban. So hindi siya kasing it's not as well developed as Kampala,
Yeah.
but it is also developed in a sense because all the establishments that are needed for a city are there. Going now to Nairobi in Kenya was a totally different experience again. Because maybe later we can talk about it. Pero the first time kasi na I flew into Nairobi coming from Kampala, we went to a place called Dandora. It was what you would call a smoky mountain here in the Philippines. It's the Smoky Mountain, Father, is a dump site for garbage.
Yes.
There was a huge dump site there, and
Yeah.
people are
The
living
whole
in
city,
yes,
the city garbage dump. Yeah.
that's true. And you will see all the people there living in such high density. There was a lot of suffering. You can tell. But for some reason, siguro later when we talk about it, I can see hope in them. Their faith in the Catholic Church is so strong.
Yes.
That's where I really felt it. So, living in such difficult environment, you would see how the unfortunate people in the urban scenario would impact the life of people and families in Africa. And the desperation is different. The nature of the problems are different versus those in Uganda. In Uganda, I would say the problems that we encounter are more traditional. There, I think it's more relatable to what people here in Manila would experience because of poverty. You get that. Now, in stark contrast, after staying in Dandora for some time,
That's on the east side of
Yeah.
the city of Nairobi.
yes,
This is like traveling
Yes,
across Africa.
having different images.
Yeah.
Yes.
true. But the extreme side of it all was when we moved from Dandora, we went to Karen,
The
And
west side of the city.
the west side.
Still in Kenya.
Still in
the
Kenya,
city
within
of-
Nairobi.
Within the
Okay.
city,
Ah.
Nairobi.
I would say it is a ridiculously rich area. You would see sprawling properties, huge houses, and from the little I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Father, but the little I know is that it used to be where the Europeans settled in, and then that's why it got so well developed.
The name Karen comes from Karen Blixen, the one who wrote a very famous book called Out of Africa. And the movie shows she lived in that place as well.
Yes.
So she also wrote the book Babette's Feast.
Mhm.
If
Yes.
But it's interesting that it was named after her nickname.
Yes.
Yes. Not the last name.
Yeah.
Usually, like, places would be named after
Yeah.
last
That's
name.
true.
So it's like, wow, the place is
People-
named as Karen.
Karen.
So that was the second country. Then going to the third, I thought I've seen it all. What I've experienced in Tanzania was beyond what I expected because I landed into Kilimanjaro in Arusha. Then we had to travel several hours going to a place called Kitete. There's a place in Kitete. We didn't end there. We had to go further in from the city, about 1 to 2 hours by dirt road, going into their center. It's literally at the lip of the Ngorongoro National Forest. And I've been told, and at least I think I believe it, that you should not go out at night because you can get
Elephants.
trampled by elephants or eaten by leopards. And I'm not kidding you.
yes.
And I remember,
They
because it's
escaped
It
from the
looks,
park.
it sounds fun.
so
Thrilling.
from very urban, it's very rural. We had to, I was told also, we had to get water from the well. And sometimes I was told that it can be turbid because the source of the water, correct me if I'm wrong again, Father, but I was told that sometimes the water is turbid because the source of the water is where the elephants bathe.
That's so cute, but that
yes.
also gives us an image of how close the rural and the urban is, like the situation kind of, like they're pretty much, like the animals are there.
Yeah.
The animals are
All
there.
around.
Yeah,
One thing,
all around.
you will
No, it's the other way around. The humans are there.
Yeah, parang,
that's true.
actually,
That's what I was about to say.
it's
So
like Lion
dangerous.
King in my head.
Actually, Lion King is inspired by
yeah.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's-
Hakuna
Yeah.
Matata is from there.
Swahili,
Uh-huh.
so there is
Swahili.
no problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
That no
But there
worries.
are a lot of problems.
Oh yes, there are. But it was really an interesting experience. And again, the Catholic faith there is very strong. For those people that I met in the rural area, I don't know what it is. Probably because I'm here in the city, I'm used to having Catholics who are usually a little bit nonchalant about their faith.
Yeah.
There, it's different. You would just see that they're taking it seriously.
I do have a question there, because you mentioned you've seen quite a lot of different areas. In
Yes, we've been
yeah.
around a lot of
Yeah.
places.
Parang feeling ko na tour na rin ako.
Yeah. Are you still on the map?
Yeah. But I want to know if, like, every single place where you are, you have that sense of strength in their faith.
Yes.
Anywhere.
I can tell you that for a fact because one of the biggest clues for me, because I look for nonverbal cues, I observe people when I'm around. The people, the way they regard priests, it's like way up there. The respect is tremendous. And it reminded me, that kind of behavior, of how Catholics in the Philippines treated priests way back in the 80s. Right now, it's just too open, and sometimes they're too casual with priests. There, no. You're very well respected if you're a priest. It's like, when in the airport, because I traveled with a priest, Father Lulu, the assistant director in East Africa, you can see that when he is seen as a priest, the respect is different. The treatment is just different. Things get easier. And they are actually very caring towards the priests. And that's something where I saw how passionate they are with being Catholic. And at the same time, as an example also is when in Dandora, the church there, it's huge. I was told, correct me again if I'm wrong, Father, but I was told that the contributions of the people who are suffering, who are poor, help build that church.
Wow.
They have nothing, yet they
own
give it.
that place. They own that place.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. It's just amazing in the sense of the way how the church is regarded. It's a source of hope. It's a source of so much that the church represents for them.
That's true.
And we are also moving out from a Catholic, a cultural Catholicism, the one that you embrace because I was born Catholic and I'm going to be Catholic, and we're moving into a sense where you have you need to claim your own faith. You need to claim your own faith. You need to find out why you're Catholic.
Yes.
And organizations and movements and apostolates have helped people to receive the formation that they need so that they can be able to own their faith. When it becomes yours, nobody takes it away from you, and nobody is going to remind you to go to church or to show up or to treat a priest this or anything like that. You just like, you know what, this is a central part of my identity. Because of this reason, there is a reason why I'm Catholic. And these reasons are not because my parents told me so, but it's because I've really grown. There is a certain beauty and the truth and depth that I found in this. That's why I am. And I'm going to wake up and just go to that program, with a youth group program, or go to this adoration, or go to Sunday Mass, because there is something so personal about this. It's not just a culture.
Actually, Father, that's very interesting to hear because basing it off from your story, it's like a conscious decision that you have to stand up for, right?
That's every Catholic must reach a point where you make that decision. Your own. And they say it,
Yeah, Father, because that's very interesting with how, with at least in our generation, that here, a lot of people are Catholics because they grew up being Catholic. But
it's
not,
a tradition,
and then they kind of let it go when
parents,
they grow up. Maybe because they don't understand why they have to be Catholic in the first place, or it was forced into them when they were younger.
And there are a lot of influences that are beyond Catholic.
And sometimes when you step into college, you're like, oh, there's a big world out there, and you're like, why am I Catholic anyway, right? So it's very interesting, Father, that even maybe you can shed some light when you were a child, how it actually sprouted from your childhood and making that decision of being a Catholic.
I was gonna say a while ago, as Alan was taking us across Europe, not Europe,
Africa,
East
Europe and
Africa.
Africa. In Africa, you seemed like you were reminiscing and just remembering.
I could my journey because I've been in every place that is mentioned.
Maybe playing with elephants, Father.
I worked in Ikitete, where the elephants are. So it is that parish that is talking about, we as a congregation of Holy Cross run in this very rural place of Tanzania, is It's in Maasai land. It is all where you have all these animals, and it's what inspired the movies like Lion King. And it's also the place where we have the Old Vai Gorge, where some of the oldest human remains were found by the Leakey anthropologists, who say likely the earliest living human beings lived in this area. Yes, yeah. So it is. It has a very long history. So let me just share a little bit about my own background. When I was growing up, we practiced the faith, and I sang in the choir. I was in the youth group. I served at mass and things like that. And we were encouraged by our parents to participate in all of these. Opportunities were created for us to be able to participate.
Encouraged, not forced?
Not forced, encouraged that this is a good thing. But they also modeled part of this. You could see them that they cared so much about matters of faith. Now, for parents, if anyone is watching this episode today, one of the biggest gifts that you can give to your kid is to embody the faith, to let them understand that this is so beautiful, it's a good thing, and you go ahead and perform that faith for them so that they can be able to see that this is something that is really valuable and is going to help them in their life. So I could see both of that happening with our parents, but he also gave us the opportunity to be active in the church. Now, that is the cultural practice of the faith, because I come from a Catholic faith, it's family. Then in high school, I went through a program that is so similar to what in America people call an encounter program, where you go out at this youth retreat and you come to know about Christ on a very personal level. On a very personal level. My parents were not there. This is not about my classmates. But I went through these retreats where I was able to come to learn about the love of God for me, what I mean for him, what my faith, and it totally changed my life, getting to know about God on this very personal level. And it influenced my vocation to the seminary, and it has influenced my priesthood, that I have a well from which I draw. I don't do this because I went and I became a priest and this is it. This is so personal to me. And even the passion that you hear in my voice and the desire for me to share my faith is coming from deep inside. Yes, I went to a theology school, but the story is much bigger than that. We have the story of the rabbit, that two dogs, there was a dog that was seated on a porch, and that dog saw a rabbit pass by. So it started giving a chase. And as it went through the neighborhood, other dogs saw a dog running, and they also started giving a chase. But they hadn't seen the rabbit. And then after running for a certain time, the other dogs started dropping off. The only dog that kept chase running was the one that had seen the rabbit. It knew exactly what it was chasing. The others didn't. And we can also be able to say the same thing about matters of faith. Until when you have an encounter with Christ, you come to know him on a very personal level, you're going to fall off. You are going to be like the other dogs that hadn't yet seen the rabbit. So again, I encourage the young people that are watching this show, this episode today, please try to find the rabbit. Try to have an encounter with the Christ. It's going to change your life. It's going to give it purpose and meaning, and it's just totally going to transform your life.
Yeah, actually, Father, you're very correct with your story. It sounds simple, right? Finding the rabbit in that story, but in reality, it's actually true. Like, you have to find that why, right?
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong. You're kind of in that realm of like allowing kids
chasing rabbits.
of finding the rabbit.
Actually, not kids, but my work is really working with college-aged youth So I'm part of Christ Youth in Action. I'm a missionary there. And a lot of the work that we do is we encounter college-age students who want to know more about Christ. And we do encounter programs like that. And
Good.
I resonate with what you mentioned, Father, that there's a huge importance in having a decision to actually chase the rabbit.
Yeah.
Or to, when you've seen the rabbit, to go for it.
And
We
to
keep
always
on
remember
speaking
that rabbit,
the rabbit,
no?
no? Yeah, but there comes a time for us where we really need to decide on fundamentals for our life. And college is a huge part of that because that's where you go out of your household, your family, you decide things for your own. And you really question yourself, like, am I Catholic just because my parents are Catholic? And that gives weight into why we continue the things that are traditional for us in the Catholic faith. Like, it gives depth in what we're doing because we're doing it out of love. And I've seen that in a lot of young people. There's a huge difference when they've decided to say that, okay, I've seen Christ, and this is a huge thing for me. So if you haven't, because of your own experience, Father Jenga encouraged us really well.
Yes, Father. With your story, maybe I wanna shift the focus a little bit. You mentioned that it really is growing in Africa, and I wanna understand: is there a shift from a specific religion? Like, is there conversion
Where
involved
are
in
the
that?
new Catholics coming
yeah,
from?
is it?
Yes, yeah, that's really a very good question. Part of what we have on the continent, Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa, is a young continent, a type of a people that are open to life. So we still have large families, we still value children, and that's part of it. But then there is also something else. We run institutions like some of the best schools, and we are very intentional about the evangelization that goes on in those schools. Because the grade schools, the high schools, and even the colleges, there are all kinds of programs that help people, not only Catholics, to deepen their own faith, but even others being invited to be part of this Catholic faith experience. So there is, so we get a lot of. I was in charge of our grade schools in Jinja when I was working there as an associate parish priest. I remember one of the young kids in grade school who said, you know what, given what I've seen here, the programs that the kid was Anglican. He wanted to join the Catholic Church. He actually did. I told him, you know, you really need to go back home and have this conversation with your parents first. The parents came and they said, if this is what he's choosing, we are really supportive of him. Let him get converted. He got converted, he was received in the faith, confirmed, and then at the end of his grade school, he said, I want to join the seminary. Minor seminary. And the dad again said, this is okay. I'm going to support him if this is where. And he went to the seminary. He's a priest now.
Wow.
And it is that kind of, when the church founded some of these institutions, grade schools, high schools, and colleges, they were founded for evangelization as one of the biggest things. So there is the provision of a good education that is going to help people survive in life, but there is also, these are spaces for evangelization. So don't lose, our schools are actually making the effort to make sure the faith is being passed on to the next generation.
So institutions and education plays a huge part in converting the population in
helping
Africa.
the numbers.
That's
yes,
interesting, Father, because I don't know about your Catholic school experience, Chai, but maybe you can. Do you have something to say from what Father Jenga mentioned?
Actually, well, I mean, this is very inspiring, Father. I mean, just imagining how that kid's experience was. It's very different from what we see. Like, I mean, on my end, I do encounter like a lot of my peers or like just batchmates, and then I'm surprised that some people actually don't really go to mass anymore.
Yeah.
So they actually let it go. I feel like the formative years of where you are is very important, especially that schools are also like your second home, right? You spend most of your time there when you're young. So maybe it's in the way that programs are even formed, curriculums, and just treatment of it. Like, it's not about, again, it's not forced, but encouraged.
Yes.
Like, I
Yes.
feel like that's a very key thing to note here.
Let me
It's a
tell
blurry
you
line.
my experience with Holy Cross Family Ministries in East Africa. When I was the director of this ministry in that region. In Kampala, we have a team of lay people that really have learned about Christ and they love Him. But we ended up into this style of new evangelization. So we have a van, we have a live band, good electrical guitars and music and everything. And we have all these projectors and everything. Our team goes to all these high schools. And you are given like 3 days, do whatever you can do with these high schoolers. And the style itself is new, this is fresh, but we are there to help people really come to know. So we don't even need to ring a bell to call them back after recess.
Oh.
Everyone will just come on his own.
Very disciplined.
Yeah.
What is this?
But it's beautiful and attractive.
What do they play, Father?
Eh?
Like, is
Maybe you
it
can give
secular
us
music or
Urban,
like
contemporary,
I think-
yes, and a lot of music, and then a real playing, really, a real helping of people encounter Christ.
Maybe
So
Father-
it's like some sort of worship music.
Yes,
somewhere.
yes. And also, we also desire also to pass on our faith faithfully,
Yeah.
the way how it has been passed on to us as Catholics.
Maybe our FRC fam would like to hear here in the Philippines we always call it sample when we want someone to like
Demo or showcase talent.
And we've heard, Father, that
yes.
you can play a guitar and
Yes.
sing one Swahili song.
Okay.
Maybe you can share a song
Okay.
for us, Father.
Like a
yes,
quick-
yeah.
Quick
I
number
was,
from Father. Sample.
Yes, yeah. I wasn't the one playing the instruments. I always had a team do it.
Okay.
They have an
So we're
own,
very lucky.
But we don't
they're
have
like,
the team now,
but
Father,
all the same, I
unfortunately.
also play a little bit. So I just
Wow.
want to. I'm going to play for you a very simple chorus in the Swahili language. It's one of the biggest languages in East Africa. So I've made a choice of it. I can be able to sing in Uganda or Toro or so many other languages. But the biggest population in the region where I come from speaks Swahili. So the song says, Simama imara, stand strong in your faith, and take care of yourself. You're going to find mountains in life, but God is going to take care of all of that.
Oh, wow.
God is good.
Amen. All the time.
Simama, simama, imara jilinde, neno lake Bwana imara, kesha kila siku, uombe, utasimama. Simama, simama, imara jilinde, neno lake Bwana imara, kesha kila siku, uombe, utasimama. Then the chorus goes, milima yote na mabonde yatayeyuka, neno lake Bwana imara, imara litasimama. Simama, simama, imara jilinde, neno lake Bwana imara, kesha kila siku, uombe, litasimama.
Lord.
That song sounds
Yeah.
familiar. I think I've heard it there.
You must have
Oh
sung
yeah, Alan might have heard it when he was
Yes.
there in Africa.
Yes, and I think it was the group who was singing it in chorus.
Yes.
You know, if there's another thing that I've observed, the teams there, they're so into music.
Music,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
When they sing randomly, it's like they rehearsed.
They do, like music
Yeah.
is the language of love. It's
Yes.
only lovers who sing.
And it's universal. It can be
Yes.
felt. Look at how, that's why
Yeah.
it's effective for the youngsters.
Yeah.
Because it's a language they can relate with. And that relatability is important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because normally, the way it is, even for us here in the Philippines, parents, especially traditional parents, they usually hammer things on the young.
Mm-hmm.
And the young are confused. They don't really understand. They just do it to follow.
Yeah.
And then eventually, when they become teenagers, sometimes they rebel. And the older people will just say, "You have to do it because I told you so,"
Mm.
without really telling them
You
why.
need to
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
The
find
why
the
is important.
Yes.
Because that why, in fact, if there's anything that we've learned from our researches, both here in the Philippines and in Africa, that's a common theme.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it now because I've been hearing your conversation. It's very common for kids, whether here in the Philippines or in Africa, to be hammered things to do without understanding, without being told why they have to do it, what's in it for me. Because
Yeah.
you have to understand, teenagers are they have a selfish face. We all went through that.
Yes.
So by the time during those phases, it's important that you plant the right seeds, which is exactly what Father Jenga was saying earlier. If you do it right, you
Yes.
planted the right seeds, because by the time they go to college, which is exactly what you're doing, Ram, they will encounter their first major trials. And if you did not build the right kind of message, to plant the right kinds of seeds, they will not look back into prayer. But if you did it right, they will remember.
Yes.
And they will
Yes.
come back. And that's how the relationship, which is also what we said, starts to deepen. Because that's when they will experience firsthand the true power of God and prayer. That's when they start to see the rabbit.
Yeah.
The why
Going
is
back.
a very important
Yes.
question, especially among the youth. Like, we think that they wouldn't think deeply about that, but when they have their purpose, a lot of things make more sense and they have more direction. I would even say that I think that plays a huge part in our own experience of Catholic schools,
Yeah.
growing up in Catholic households, but still ending up falling out of our faith. It's because the main reason isn't exactly clear for us because it's set up in terms of structure.
Yes.
We did some research a while ago. Here are numbers again.
We're researchers
Yes.
here.
And among the 119 million Filipinos, 81% are Catholic, right?
Big. Diba?
Yes.
Compared to
Big.
Africa.
Yes.
much
Although
bigger number.
it's only like 41%, almost like just half,
Yes. Less than. Pa.
less than, who are practicing or who are actually attending Sunday Mass. And that's quite alarming. We
Yes.
even have like a specific term here in the Philippines. We call them nominal Catholics. Mga Kristiyano pag linggo. Katoliko pag linggo. Because they just come to Mass, but like throughout the week, it's not deepened. And it's all just becoming tradition. I don't know if you have something to say or add there, if the research backs that statistics for us.
Okay, I wouldn't really say that it is a fact,
Mhm.
but there were mentions because we've spoken with so many people from all walks of life. And there are some people who do mention that sometimes they just do it because it is what they've been used to, or
Yeah.
it is what's been inculcated into them by their elders. But the relationship is not there. That's where the problem lies.
Yeah.
And those are actually the people that starts to fall out. Now, you have to consider the fact, especially in our country, we are a lot more westernized. We're exposed to so much stimuli out there, websites, technology,
Secularization.
right?
Distractions.
So those distractions make them, of course, for them, that's a positive thing. it's their preference. They go there by choice. They start eventually to feel that, oh, I prefer this than doing my, practicing my Catholic faith. That's where it starts. If it was, the foundations were not built right during childhood and teenage years, there's a high likelihood for them to really fall out.
People just need to find a way of making the faith their own.
Yeah.
You need to encounter Christ, get to know him on a personal level, and have your own personal why. Why are you doing this faith here?
And I think that's the greatest challenge of our faith here in the Philippines, translating that to the youth,
Yeah.
our youth. If I may ask, Father, like in Africa, we know that it's the fastest growing Catholic population now, but I'm sure it doesn't go without challenges.
Yes.
What are some of those hindrances that you feel like are very striking in terms of spreading the Catholic faith in Africa?
Yeah, generally the continent in many of these places is still poor. And so there are all kinds of challenges sustaining even the institutions and the pastoral programs that we need to offer for our people. But people still support the church, even amidst of this. That's where you would have desired to do 10 programs, you can end up like running like 3 because of all these extreme poverty and financial constraints that are there. There are also other places that where the church sort of like suffers persecution. If you follow the newspapers, like in Nigeria and the northern part of Nigeria, churches are being blown up by other faith groups, and Christians being abducted and killed, and it's just been a very unfortunate situation altogether there. So there is situations like those that you see that are coming up. In my country, for example, of Uganda, the Catholic faith is so strong, so vibrant. We run some of the best institutions that there is so much respect for the church and what it does. You can say the same thing about Tanzania. You can say the same thing about Kenya as well. That there is so much respect for the church, even among those that just are not Catholics.
Yeah, maybe on that note with Father, with the different challenges that we are facing, I think we want to focus on the different efforts that we are doing to address those challenges. Maybe we can start with Alan. You can shed some light in your experience, how we are addressing these issues. Especially, you were also brought into Africa to address those and like have an observation. Maybe you could talk about what we're doing.
Meaning the Holy Cross
Holy
Ministries. Yeah.
You know what? One of the most striking things that I've seen in East Africa, they have very focused departments. So the services that's being provided to support the people outside in public, they're supporting practically everyone in every age range. You have, the children's formation. So you have they do programs in schools. They teach kids how to pray. Then you have the ones for youth. So the youth, they're different, just like what you were saying, and what Fr Jenga was saying. They go to schools, put music, a different way of evangelizing and attracting the younger generation, the Gen Zs, which is particularly tricky, by the way, because there are so many things that they can choose from, And then there's, of course, what you call family and marriage. So for those who are married couples and those who are going through issues, they sometimes do counseling services because they help families stay together, which is very true to the core message of Father Patrick Peyton himself. The family that prays together stays together. They make sure that the families remain intact despite whatever challenges that they are encountering. But the end goal, of course, by doing so, you remove the obstacles and they find their way towards praying together as a family, which is the core.
Yeah.
Okay. Then after that, you also have your liturgy department where they also share the messages, the Word of God, and there's also there's media. That's where the social media, it's a form of evangelization. So it's very diverse. It's now starting, which I think it's a good move because it's adapting to the ever-changing world that we have.
Yes.
You have to
Very
understand, you
true.
have to keep up.
Yeah.
Because if we stay in the old traditional way of evangelization, you're really going to lose out on the younger generation because they really don't go to church on their own.
Yeah.
They would rather go do their own thing, be with friends. So we have to find ways to capture them. I actually found very interesting ideas there and also inputs from the research that we've done that some young people are suggesting, you can actually evangelize us by just showing us the wonders of nature, the creation of God. And some people just go hiking, and upon reaching a certain point, they just pray together. Sometimes you have to be creative.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So you have to really listen. That's the core purpose of why my work has been that extensive.
Yeah.
We went down to ground level. You don't stay in your office. You don't stay in your church. You're not going to be seeing the reality down there. Once you're down there, you feel their pain. There's what we call that very important word, empathy. You cannot empathize if you do not experience or see or feel what they are feeling.
That's the impact of the ministries that we're doing right now.
And that's also why we have Allan Mirasol as such, because he's able to open the world of why it's important to first of all listen. Right? It's a key thing that we want to be noting here.
Yes.
And then
Yeah. About you, Father Jenga, what do you think is the role of our mission here in FRC and HCFM, and of course, like carrying on the vision of Venerable Patrick Peyton in building the church in this world today?
Yeah.
Wow. As the president.
on a global sense.
On a global scale. Of course, the big questions go to the president.
Alan has asked that we need to go down.
And Father's like,
Well,
oh no.
the overall mission of this apostolate that was founded by Venerable Patrick Peyton is that we're going to promote and foster the spiritual well-being of families. Families is where everything starts. And if we can be able to get that right, if it is either building relationships or the passing on the faith, a lot of good things are going to come down the road. The contribution of this organization is we would like to prepare well people for family life, and you can do that. Yeah, there is what they call a distant preparation. When people are still young and they're still youth, how are they being prepared to be fathers and mothers and husbands and uncles? What is going on in that kind of preparation? And when people are being prepared for marriage, for example, sometimes, yes, the church tends to do a good job with that. When people, like, I have my wedding in 2 months, and so you start seeing the priest, we tend to know a little bit about that, what is going on and how solid, how deep, how strong is it that is preparing you for the life that you're going to have. But then an even more important part is the ongoing formation. After, for example, people have gotten married, what happens? What kind of enrichment do they receive to strengthen the couples together, to help them in the way how they are doing parenting? What is going on? We as a ministry can be able to help, especially in that area. Ongoing formation, that you can be able to deepen your faith, deepen your relationship. There is so much that we do in that area. But we can also, of course, do outreach to young people and start planting the seeds early enough that when they end up in family life of some kind, they also find an infrastructure in place that is going to nourish them and to deepen them and strengthen them as they navigate through life. So that is what I see happening in East Africa, and this is what I'm seeing through these programs, preparing people, setting them. But even that's what happens in the FRC units that we have, that your faith is being nourished and being deepened.
Wow, Father, actually that encourages me more with what we're doing right now, because it just shows the bigger vision that we really are here to prepare more families to build their decisions to continue the relationship with the Lord. And I think that's what I got from hearing more stories from Africa, that there is indeed a decision, but there needs to be like constant nourishment and formation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we need
Absolutely.
help for that. Like
Yes.
it's not just a one decision thing, but like it's something that
It's not
we
an
decide on
event.
day to day.
It is a
So it's
very
like a one-time-
long process.
Yeah.
It is a journey with a
It
family.
is a
Yes.
journey
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we celebrate
Yes.
in
Yes.
each decision, because that's what I also got from Africa. Being just joyful with their faith.
And it also highlights the value of family yet again. Like, we always
Yes.
say the word family, but we kind of tend to forget the different elements that form a family and what makes it a good environment for kids.
Yes.
Right? And having that good environment actually brings us to being able to sustain our faith, right?
Yes, yes.
With Father's answer to our question nga, diba, how do we address those challenges? And he goes back to the very basic of, like, having that good environment to
Yes.
nourish and to
Nourish the why.
nourish the why.
Yes. So thank you, Father Jenga and Alan, for being here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you have like a brief last encouragement for our FRC fam as we end this very fruitful and inspiring conversation.
Yeah.
Alan is going fast, I guess.
Alphabetical order.
No worries.
Jenga is down the road.
The ministry's presence throughout the world is encouraging. It's good that there's this way for us to still find a path to protect the basic unit of society, because it's all, like you were saying earlier, it's often forgotten. Now, the only thing I have to say is, if things seem to be getting difficult for any ministry, all we really have to do is really go out there, understand people, talk to people, because you will never understand others if you don't understand what they're going through. We cannot make our own assumptions because we are all wired differently. So listening is really important. And by doing that, it arms you with the ability to empathize. That is something of a core for a ministry like ours, especially since we are protecting such a valuable unit in society. So family is all about love, and that love cannot exist if you're not empathetic. So really listen and try to adapt. And there's a lot of technology out there. We can learn from other countries as well. That's why it's good that we have this kind of experience, sharing knowledge also from other regions.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Alan.
Alan.
Yes, yeah. So just to piggyback on what Alan has said, is family life is such a very important unit, not only just for society, but also for our faith and our church. If we don't get this to be strong and vibrant, then our church is going to be weak. That's why we need really to concentrate on making sure that this place, this unit, receives so much attention, so much love, so that it can be able to flourish and grow and be the best that it can be. And there are different ways of attending to what is going on in family life right now. People care about the financial health of the family. Parents are working and working and working all these long hours. The intellectual part of the family. Children are spending so many hours at school. All of those are very important. But we also need to care about the spiritual lives of families. It's very, very important. When God is at the center of everything, it's going to change the life of that family. Because God is love, God is forgiveness, God is generosity, God is kindness. That is the kind of chemistry that we desire to see in our families when we allow God to be part of it. Thank you. We had such a great show.
Oh,
Wow,
yes.
yes.
Oh,
thank
thank
you.
you so
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Father
much.
Jenga and Alan.
Mhm.
So we need to indeed listen to be able to love. And that's hard, especially in a church of different backgrounds, different families, different cultures. As Pope Francis said, and I hope this encourages us, FRC fam, Catholicism is a harmony of differences created by the Holy Spirit. Catholic missionary outreach must proclaim the gospel according to culture. And our diversity that may seem to be a challenge can actually be a blessing for us because it's something that we're able to share to the bigger church.
Yes, and I think that's also what we're striving to do in this episode. So to our FRC fam out there, thank you for listening. I hope you were able to get some encouragement inside of you, and also just being proud of our faith, through the stories, through the images, and like the beautiful, inspiring photos and images that were provided by their stories of Father Jenga and again Alan in Africa. So again, thank you so much, FRC fam. Again, it's Shai
and Rap, who leave you with the wise words of Venerable Patrick Peyton that
the family that prays together stays together,
and a world at prayer is a world
At peace.
Amen.
Bye!
Okay, so now parang
Thank
not
you,
so much
Father.
afraid of stray dogs in my streets because
Hyena.
there are no elephants.